That day you were broken. Admit it. The moment you heard those words, you immediately pictured it. Maybe it was the end of a long relationship, a sudden loss, or just a Tuesday afternoon when the weight of the world became too heavy to carry. You felt it in your bones, a darkness so thick you weren't sure you'd ever find the exit. But what if that collapse wasn't an ending? What if it was a sacred invitation? Carl Jung once suggested that no tree can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell. Most people spend their entire lives running from that darkness, trying to fix, hide, or forget it. But what if you stopped running? What if the fire you walked through wasn't there to consume you, but to act as alchemical fire, burning away the masks you wore and the ego that held you captive, leaving behind only the pure gold of your true soul? Today we're going to look at the 7 unmistakable signs that you have already passed this most painful test. We aren't just talking about surviving, we're talking about individuation, the profound process of becoming who you were always meant to be. The 7th sign we'll discuss is the most important. Once you recognize it, you will never see your past the same way again. Before we dive into these signs, take a second to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. It helps us build this community of seekers. Now let's see if you recognize yourself in these transformations. Let's find out if the test that was meant to break you actually ended up revealing you. The truth is, the most important test of your life rarely announces itself with trumpets. It usually comes disguised as a dead end. It looks like a marriage failing, a career crumbling, or a quiet, hollow emptiness that hits you in the middle of the night. Carl Jung, one of the greatest explorers of the human mind, knew this path intimately. He didn't just study the soul, he nearly lost himself to it. After a devastating period of isolation and inner chaos, Jung realized something that changes everything. The soul doesn't care about your comfort. It only cares about your wholeness. He called this process individuation. Think back to your own darkest day. You probably felt like you were being destroyed. But through Jung's lens, you weren't being destroyed. You were being peeled. We all wear a persona, a mask we've carefully crafted to be liked, to be successful, to be normal. But beneath that mask lies the shadow, the parts of yourself you've hidden because you were told they were too much, too dark, or too different. The most painful test of your soul happens when your mask shatters, when life forces you to stand face to face with your shadow. Have you ever felt like you were mourning the person you used to be? Like that old version of you had to die? That wasn't a breakdown, it was a breakthrough. You were being forced to stop being perfect so that you could finally become whole. As we move into the first sign, ask yourself, did I survive the storm? Or did the storm finally allow me to see who I really am? The first sign that you have passed the most painful test of your soul is a radical shift in how you experience being alone. For most people, silence is a threat. They run from it. They fill the void with noise, scrolling through their phones, or clinging to relationships that no longer serve them, all to avoid the crushing weight of their own company. They see solitude as a punishment, a sign that they are unloved or forgotten. But you've reached a point where you no longer fear the quiet. In fact, you've started to crave it. Think about it. Have you noticed that you no longer feel that desperate need to be somewhere or with someone just to feel alive? This is because during your darkest hour, you were forced into a room with your own soul. At first, it was terrifying, but eventually the screaming stopped and the conversation began. In Jungian terms, you have moved from loneliness to aloneness. Loneliness is the painful awareness of an absence. Aloneness is the joyful awareness of your own presence. You've realized that being alone isn't a sign of being broken. It's a sign of being at home within yourself. You no longer need mirrors, social or literal, to tell you who you are. You've become your own sanctuary. When you can sit in a silent room and feel a sense of peace rather than a need to escape, you have passed a major threshold of the soul. You have integrated the shadow that once made you feel not enough, and replaced it with a quiet, unshakable self-sufficiency. The second sign that you have passed the most painful test of your soul is that you've stopped looking for villains. In psychology, We call this the end of projection. You've stopped using the world as a mirror for your own wounds. Think about how you used to react when someone cut you off in traffic or when a colleague took credit for your work. Your blood would boil. You'd spend the rest of the day replaying the argument in your head, calling them names, feeling like a victim of their unfairness. This is what Jung called projection, throwing your internal chaos onto the outside world. Jung once famously noted that everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. But understanding this intellectually is one thing, living it is another. Consider the myth of Perseus and the Medusa. Medusa was so terrifying that to look at her directly meant turning to stone. Perseus could only defeat her by looking at her reflection in his polished shield. Your villains, the people who betrayed you, the bosses who belittled you, the partners who let you down, were your Medusas. For years, you looked at them directly, and your heart turned to stone with bitterness. But now the shield has been polished. You've passed the test when you realize that the monster you saw in them was often a reflection of a shadow you hadn't faced in yourself. Think about the person who used to trigger your deepest rage. Do they still hold that power over you? When you pass this soul test, you notice a strange phenomenon. The world flattens. You see people's flaws, their greed and their insecurities, but you no longer take them personally. You realize that a person's cruelty is simply a map of their own internal hell. You no longer feel the need to win every argument or to be right. Why? Because you've stopped projecting your need for justice onto a world that isn't designed to be fair. You've realized that the only person you are truly in a relationship with is yourself. By taking 100% responsibility for your emotional state, you've performed a masterstroke of spiritual aikido. You've taken the energy people used to use against you, and you've recycled it into inner peace. If you can look at your enemies and feel nothing but a quiet, distant pity, you haven't just healed. You've matured beyond the reach of the ego. Passing this test means you've taken your power back. You no longer wait for the world to be fair, or for people to be kind before you can feel okay. You've realized that while you cannot control the wind, you have finally learned how to adjust your sails. The third sign you've passed the test is perhaps the hardest to talk about. It's a quiet, heavy sense of gratitude. Now let's be honest, this isn't the kind of gratitude you see on a motivational poster. It's not a happy, "I'm glad that happened" kind of feeling. It's much deeper and much more somber. It's the realization that while you would never want to live through that hell again, you have become someone you actually respect because of it. Think of that specific relationship that shattered you. At the time, you felt like your life was over. You spent nights staring at the ceiling, wondering how you'd ever breathe again. But look at yourself now. If that person hadn't left, would you have ever discovered your own strength? If that door hadn't slammed shut, would you have ever looked for the path you're on now? Think about the version of you that existed before the storm. Maybe they were more naive, or perhaps they were living a life that didn't really belong to them. Jung believed that sometimes the ego becomes so rigid that only a catastrophe can crack it open. Do you look back at the people who hurt you, or the moments that broke you, and feel a strange cold relief? Not because it was good, but because it was necessary. It's like the Japanese art of kintsugi, where broken pottery is repaired with gold. The bowl is still broken, the cracks are still there, but it's stronger and more honest than it ever was when it was perfect. If you can look at your life today and say, "That fire almost destroyed me, but it also burned away the person I was pretending to be," then you have passed the third sign. You aren't just a victim anymore. You are a survivor who has turned their scars into wisdom. This isn't toxic positivity. It's the brutal, beautiful alchemy of the human soul. The fourth sign that you've passed the soul's deepest test is the arrival of an unshakable inner center. Remember how a single snide comment from a stranger or a minor delay in your plans used to ruin your entire mood. Your peace was fragile, like a house of cards. But through your soul's test, you've built a foundation of stone. In the past, you were likely a reactor. You were like a leaf in the wind. If the world was kind, you were happy. If the world was cruel, you were devastated. But passing the test has changed your internal gravity. In many ancient traditions, the mountain is the symbol of the self. Clouds gather around its peak, storms lash at its sides, and seasons change its colors, but the mountain remains. This is exactly what has happened to you. You've stopped being the weather and started being the mountain. Jung made a crucial distinction between the ego and the self. The ego is like a small boat on the surface of the ocean. It is terrified of every wave. But the self is the entire ocean. It is vast, deep, and remains still, no matter how much foam and fury there is on the surface. Have you noticed that you no longer feel the desperate need to defend yourself? When someone misjudges you or lashes out, instead of a sharp sting, you feel a quiet, distant observation. You realize that their anger is just a storm passing through their sky, and it doesn't have to enter yours. The ultimate proof of this sign is how others react to you. Have you noticed people starting to lean on you? Even strangers might feel a sense of safety in your presence. This is because you carry the frequency of the survivor. You are the eye of the storm, because you have faced your internal chaos and organized it into order. The external chaos of the world no longer has a hook to grab you by. If you can stand in the middle of a collapsing situation and feel your breath, your pulse, and your peace, you have attained the immovable center. The fifth sign is a shift so quiet you might have missed it. The birth of radical compassion. This isn't the pity that looks down on others. This is the recognition that looks into others. In Greek mythology, there is the figure of Chiron, the wounded healer. He was a centaur who suffered from a wound that would never heal. Because of his own eternal pain, he became the greatest healer and teacher of gods and heroes. This is the path you have walked. Your unhealable test became the source of your greatest medicine. Most people use their pain as a brick to build a wall. They become hard, cynical, and judgmental. I suffered, so why should I care about you? But for the soul that passes the test, pain acts as a solvent. It dissolves the shell of the ego. Have you found yourself looking at people who are failing, the addicts, the angry, the lost, and instead of thinking I would never do that, you think I understand the darkness that led them there? This is the death of spiritual pride. By facing your own shadow, as Jung urged us to do, you've realized that the line between good and evil doesn't run between groups of people, but right through the center of every human heart, including your own. This realization makes you dangerous to the status quo, but a blessing to the broken. You no longer offer advice. You offer presence. You've realized that most people don't need a lecture on how to be better. They need a witness to the fact that they are seen. If you find yourself feeling a strange, overwhelming kinship with the misfits of the world, you have passed the fifth gate. Your heart hasn't just healed. It has expanded to hold the world. The sixth sign that you have passed the soul's most brutal trial is a radical shift from the anxiety of control to the serenity of trust. You have stopped trying to wrestle life into submission and have finally learned how to dance with the mystery. For most of our lives, we operate under the delusion that we are the masters of our fate. We white-knuckle our way through existence, believing that if we just work harder, plan better, or worry more, we can avoid the storm. But the test of the soul is designed to shatter that illusion. It takes you to a place where no amount of planning can save you. It forces you to reach the end of your own strength until you have no choice but to let go. And in that letting go, you discovered what Jung called synchronicity. Jung didn't see coincidences as accidents. He saw them as the universe's way of whispering to us. He defined it as an acausal connecting principle, a moment where your inner world and the outer world align in a way that defies logic. Have you noticed that since you passed through the fire, the world has started to speak to you? Perhaps it's a book that falls off a shelf at exactly the right moment, or a stranger who says the one thing you needed to hear. This isn't just luck. It's a sign that you are no longer at war with reality. When you integrate your shadow and find your center, you stop being a noise in the universe and start becoming a harmony. You've realized that the unknown isn't a dark basement full of monsters. It's a vast ocean of potential. If you can wake up and say, I don't know what today brings, but I trust that it is exactly what I need for my growth. You have passed the sixth gate. You have traded the exhausting armor of the ego for the fluid power of the soul. we have reached the seventh and most powerful sign. It is the final threshold of the soul, and once you cross it, there is no going back. This sign is the death of the victim. Think about the way you used to tell your story. For a long time, the tragedy was the lead character. You were the person who was betrayed, the person who lost everything, or the person who was never enough. Your wounds weren't just parts of your past, they were your identity. But look at yourself now. The seventh sign is when you realize that your scars no longer define you, they inform you. You've stopped asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and started asking, "What did this happen for?" In Jungian terms, you have finally integrated the light and the shadow. You have stopped being a passive character in a tragedy and have become the conscious author of your own life. You realize that the victim had to die so that the individual could be born. This is the ultimate freedom. When you no longer identify with your trauma, the people who hurt you lose their power. The circumstances that broke you lose their grip. You don't look at your past with bitterness. You look at it with the cold, clear eyes of a master who has studied a difficult craft. You are no longer a victim of fate. You are a participant in a grand divine design. If you feel a strange sense of newness, as if the old version of you is a stranger from a movie you saw a long time ago, congratulations. You haven't just passed the test, you have been reborn. If you have recognized yourself in these 7 signs, take a deep breath, feel the air in your lungs, feel the weight of your body on the earth. You are here. You made it. You are no longer the person you were when the fire started. That version of you, the one who lived in fear, the one who lived for the approval of others, the one who felt like a victim of life, has been laid to rest. And while it is okay to mourn them, it is even more important to celebrate the one who has taken their place. Passing the most painful test of your soul isn't a one-time event, it's an initiation. You have been initiated into the fellowship of those who know the truth, that life is not happening to you, it is happening for you. But what happens now? What do you do with this new version of yourself? This gold that has been forged in the fire? Jung believed that once we achieve a level of wholeness, our responsibility changes. You are no longer here just to survive. You are here to be a lighthouse. In a world full of people who are currently in their own dark night of the soul, your existence is the proof that the darkness doesn't win. You don't need to preach, and you don't need to save everyone. You simply need to be. Your calm, your compassion, and your lack of judgment will be felt by everyone you meet. As you step back into the world, remember this: the scars you carry are not defects. They are the cracks where the light gets in, and more importantly, they are the channels through which your light now flows out to others. Before you leave us today, I want to ask you something important. Which of these 7 signs resonated with you the most? Is there a particular part of your journey that you finally understand now? Please, share your story in the comments. Not because we are curious, but because your words might be the exact lifeline someone else needs to read today. Your transformation is contagious. If this message helped you find meaning in your struggle, like the video and share it with someone who is currently walking through their own fire. Subscribe to join our community of seekers. Remember, the storm didn't destroy you, it revealed you. The test is over. Your life, your real, authentic life, begins now. Thank you for watching.